Welcome to our program for this week. The first question is from Michael. Michael is from Nigeria. Good day, Pastor. I have two questions to ask. As Christians, what do we do when we preach the gospel to a person that is a Muslim or an idol worshiper, and he tries to or gets violent with you because of the differences in beliefs? Secondly, I wanted to know what to do when I preach to people and they say they're born again, and I know they're saying it so I can get off their face and not disturb them. Well, a wise approach to evangelical efforts is very, very important. I'm going to read to you something from the Bible, maybe two portions of the Bible, to show you how these things are done. The Bible tells us in James chapter 1 and verse 5, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. He's saying you can ask God for wisdom and he'll grant you your heart's desire. Wisdom is vital in our approach to evangelism, soul winning. We've got to look at the circumstances, recognize the differences among people and individuals, and know how to deal with them. In book of Acts chapter 17, from verse 22, the Bible talks to us about Paul and how he encountered different kinds of people, religious people with several different persuasions. He met them at Mars Hill, and here's what happened. From verse 22, then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld the devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship. Him declare I unto you. And then went on to preach from there. He didn't accuse them of being stupid, of being foolish. He didn't call them idol worshippers and so on and so forth, even though they worshipped all kinds of things. But then he said, I noticed that you have an inscription for the unknown God, because they thought to themselves, we have many different gods. Just in case we didn't recognize a particular one, this one represents that God that we don't know. And Paul took off from there. See, from their unknown, he began to bring them the revelation of God. I'll show you another situation where he functioned in so much wisdom. Book of Acts, chapter 26, and I'm reading to you from verse 24. Here he was making his defense before Festus the governor and Agrippa the king. From verse 24, and as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself. Much learning doth make thee mad. But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. I like that. Even at that situation, he presented himself so respectfully to Festus the governor, who said he was mad. He said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. He maintained his composure. Now in verse 26, he says, for the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely. For I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him, for this thing was not done in a corner. Then he directly addressed the king. He said, King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest. He put the words in the king's mouth. And listen to the king's response. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. Now, how did Paul respond? And Paul said, I would to God that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day were both almost and altogether such as I am, except these bones. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and they that sat with them. And when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, This man doeth nothing worthy of death or of bonds. Then said Agrippa unto Festus, This man might have been set at liberty, if he had not appealed unto Caesar. They found Paul to be of an excellent spirit. They had thought to let him go, except that he had appealed to Caesar. Wise communication. So, if you learn to approach those you want to talk to about Jesus with wisdom, you're most likely to communicate excellently the gospel of Jesus Christ. Remember, our message is good news. Our message is intended to win. Our message is not a message to condemn even those that are idol worshippers or of the various religions in the world. So you're not going to talk to them against their religion. You're only presenting to them that which they have not known. So when you look at it from that perspective, without condemning what they already think they have, they're more likely or more likely to accept your message than to turn it down and become violent. Of course, I know that there are unreasonable men and women around the world that may be thoughtlessly wicked, but then it will minimize the impact. So that's the point. Salam from Ghana. My question is that I have been called into ministry by God and I experience heat all over my body, which I was told is the presence of the Holy Spirit. What am I supposed to do when I experience this heat? Also, my ministry is healing. How do I make it manifest? Well, you need to undergo some ministerial training. Either I would advise that you go to a ministerial school, or you work under a minister that can train you, because you definitely require some training from the things you've said. So that's my recommendation, and that will help you answer these questions and a lot more that are similar to this, or that will arise as a result of quick answers to this. Lighton from United Kingdom. Dear Pastor, what would you say to people who say that the Bible has been edited and some things have been taken away, and even have backup for their claims? They even go as far as saying it was copied by people who don't actually believe in it, and even hate some of those the Bible talks about, like the Jews, Pharisees, Masons, Catholics, and so on. Thank you so much, sir. You're indeed a champion. Well, anyone who says that the Bible is an incomplete material or has been edited, like you said, should provide a better alternative. It's as simple as that. If they can provide a better alternative to the Bible, then maybe we'll start thinking about listening to them. But the reality is, this book has been subjected to all kinds of tests through the years. You may even need to read through the church history and understand so many things that have happened with Christians and the Bible itself and how it came to be. You need a whole history on that. You'll be more and more convinced that this Bible is a good enough material for us. And I'd like to read to you 2 Timothy chapter 3 and beginning with verse